Feel the bug, you wanna feel the beat. And I know mama told me not to wear it out.
Well, everybody, welcome to Rampage Recap Week 2. My name is Xenaero, and I am joined today by the League Commissioner and my co-host this week, Nexus. Welcome to the stream.
Hell yeah, here we are again.
We'll be running through Rampage Recap, and you might ask, what is Recap? Recap is where we talk about the state of the league, go over the brackets, and commentate on matches that have occurred over the past week of gameplay, along with a little bit of fun speculation. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, to everybody in the Twitch chat right now. I do want to go over an announcement that was made, well, more like a overlay that showed up where we're running an event through the month of June, and any subscriptions, donations, or anything like that will go towards the server fund for Rampage Doom servers. It's a community event by the community for the community. It's pretty fun to do. Before we get started, though, is there anything you want to say about maybe the league format or the 3 divisions so far? What's the state of the league as of right now, Nexus?
Yeah, for sure. So as of right now, we are, well, if you look at the brackets in the pro division, it looks like we're about halfway through. We're actually much further through. The bulk of the games have happened in round 1 and round 2. So we've got a lot of players who've been eliminated already. So right now we've just completed round 2, and we're getting round 3 games started. So yeah, pro division's getting on pretty nicely there. With intermediate division, we're already at semifinals, and then losers round 3 and losers round 4. So very far through in intermediate, and then continuing the same trend when we look at the rookie bracket. We're actually already on finals in the rookie bracket. So with the rookie bracket being single elimination, whereas intermediate and pro are double elimination, it's gone a lot quicker, and we're already at the final matchup here.
Yeah, that will be a matchup between Vaj and D-Ron. So that will be a best of 5, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So while most matches happen under a best of 3, best of 5s are going to be mostly in the semifinals of the rookie division, as well as the upper bracket of both the pro and the intermediate divisions. That correct?
Yeah. So this is one part which I encourage anyone, if they're not 100% sure on, just to ask myself or Wiz. Essentially, the upper brackets of pro and the upper brackets of intermediate, semifinals forward, those are all best of 5. Right, so it's the first one to win 3 games. We've got the order in which the games are posted in League Info, I believe. And then the losers rounds, so losers round 3, losers round 4, 5, 6, because there's so many extra losers round, they're just best of 3. So for losers round, they continue as normal, but for semifinals and finals for the winner bracket, those are best of 5.
All right, and that's a good picture of the intermediate division. We looked at rookie for a bit, and the lower bracket is almost done for intermediate, and we're already looking at the semifinals between Saltmine and Killer 007 for the intermediate division. That will happen next week. I don't believe there's any moratorium on games being played a certain amount of time. It's kind of just when the players determine.
Yeah, we're encouraging players to play a little bit quicker now, since if we did each of these games are going to take a week, that'd just be ridiculous, especially when we're looking at semifinals, there being literally 2 players in there. We're going to give these players a whole week for that and a whole week for finals. It's going to be a little bit crazy. So I've been encouraging people to play their games a little bit quicker, and I think as we get on to you're looking at the pro bracket there, as we look at losers round 3, losers round 4, 5, 6, those are all going to be much quicker than round 1 and 2, as they were a whole crap ton of players in those first 2 rounds. So yeah, it's going to start picking up pace a little bit here. We're looking at getting games done a little bit quicker than a week, but it's always easier said than done.
It is, and week 1 we had 22 matches total across all 3 divisions. This time around we're going to be covering 15 because one of them will be the rookie game that we were unable to recap rather last week, and that we'll take a look at that here in a second. But as you see through the brackets, Pro Division is pretty stacked. A lot of great players there, and unfortunately the field has to thin a bit. Going into week 3, we'll be looking at Nexus versus Omar, Despero versus X-Wizard in the upper bracket, and then Lang against Dante, and then Poto against Warrior in the lower bracket. So things are going to happen a lot quicker. Only 4 matches next week, but that's next week. Do you want to talk about this week?
Absolutely, there's a lot to unpack here. So yeah, throughout this one, it's gone awfully quickly. This is the rookie division game I guess we missed last week, isn't it?
That is correct. This is going to be the first, well, we're kind of moving this on to this week as we were unable to get to it last week due to a delay from a player's illness. This one is between Powerful Ho and MAME XL3, I believe, where MAME won 50 to 34 on Dwango 5 map 1 and 50 to 42 on Green War, while MAME was able to outpace Powerful Ho handily on his own map, to the degree where he even felt confident enough to get a final pistol kill. The margin was much closer on Green War, 50 to 42.
Yeah, as you said, it came a lot closer in the second one. Yeah, there was quite a bit going on in this one. Both players aren't super well practiced in duels, so it was definitely a good rookie bracket game. There was I did personally, I watched this one with MAME, and I thought he was being a little bit unsportsmanlike. Occasionally he was just kind of using the pistol when he felt he was winning, which is not always what we're looking for, but each player's up to make their own decisions. We'll get into MAME a little bit later in the broadcast, but it was a good effort from Ho. She didn't know these maps quite as much, I don't think, as MAME perhaps does. MAME hasn't been playing Duel for quite as long. It was a good effort, and like you said, came down a lot closer in the second one than the first one.
Most certainly, and we do love the rookie. I love the rookie games because it's so fun to see players actively learn and develop against each other in an arena they may not be too familiar with. So, but congratulations to MAME on advancing, and we hope to see Ho in the future in any competitive events throughout the community. Moving on, now we'll be getting into this week's matches. This first one is going to be the Pro Division upper bracket between yourself, Nexus, and Dranzer, where you won in a 2-1 series. First, you opened with 50 to 12 on Judas, handily outpacing Dranzer. But Dranzer came back to win 50 to 49 on Pobla, and then you came back to win 50 to 23 on this week's tiebreaker map, Mu2D. A reminder to everybody here that the tiebreaker map varies week to week.
Yeah, absolutely. This week is coming up on Eon DM, so that's a good one. I don't think anyone picked that one. But yeah, between this game with myself and Dranzer, I think it's mainly a case of Dranzer. He's certainly not a duel player, but he's extremely good at Pobla, and so struggled to beat him there. I couldn't do it. Nerves got to me a little bit. It came down to 1 frag. I think that's the closest game we've had in the tournament so far.
Pretty much impossible to get a narrower margin.
Yeah. But then on dual maps that I play almost every day, I think the gaps obviously opened up quite a lot more. He put a good effort in for sure, but the gaps, there's not much I can add really.
All right, well,
about it, to be honest. Yeah.
How it is. I love putting you on the spot, making you talk about your own game. Nexus will move on to face against Amar next week, and Dranzer is put down into the lower bracket. I'm going to take a moment to give a shout out to Widower, who dropped 10 gifted subs. Thank you very much. The funds of which will be going into the server fund for this for Rampage Doom servers. they put a lot of effort into their server cluster and put a lot of time and effort into organizing this community event. So thank you very much for that donation.
Thank you, Woodward.
Next up, Amar versus Poto in the Pro Division upper bracket, where Amar won 2-0. First, it will be 50-27 on Dweller 2, his home field, and 50-44 against Poto on Class 219. Another week, another showing of Amar's expertise on Dweller. Poto is sent to the lower bracket, and then Amar moves on to face Nexus in the upper bracket semifinals.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. This one's going to be a lot easier to talk about because I don't have to talk about myself. But yeah, Amar versus Poto, two very, very skilled players. I think I mentioned a lot last week. Poto is one of those players who's very well known in CTF. With Duel, it's a little bit more of a question mark. You know, he's not really seen playing Duels very often, and he's done a really good showing considering that he's not a Duel player. You know, when you face Amar, there's certainly no shame in losing against him. I think this was a pretty easy one to predict. Personally, I think a lot of people would have expected Poto to win this, but you know, when you don't play Duels often, this is just the result you're gonna get. The games weren't, you know, awfully spread apart at all. Poto, like I said, did a really, really good, solid job. But I think the deciding factor was definitely just Poto is not a regular Duel player, and if he had been a regular Duel player, maybe this would have ended up a different way. But you know, with Amar, he plays Duels quite frequently. He's very well known in the Duel community, so not a huge surprise personally for me here, but a very good game nonetheless.
Absolutely, congratulations to Amar as he moves on. Every player so far in week 2, now in the upper bracket, is a pretty seasoned dueler. Poto may have less experience than his opponent, but he still put up a pretty strong showing. Class 219 was again only 6 frags between the two players. Moving on between now Desperal and Dante in the upper bracket. Desperal did come away 2-0 against his opponent, also getting stuck in the walls in King 1, which is awesome. That does happen from time to time. Desperal did win 50-45 on his home field at King 1, and then again 50-46 on Dante's home field at Duengo 5 map 1. So matches were extremely tight, 5 frags between the two players or less, and Desperal had to even resort to a couple suicides to keep Dante from catching back up to him. So, I mean, what do you say about this? It says 2-0 on your screen, but the margins between the two players were extremely thin.
Yeah, you're right about that. This is one of those games when you're coming down to less than 5 frags between them. It's almost like there's so many possibilities where you're thinking of it. What if one player spawned a little bit more here, a little bit more there? You know, what if Dante got a little bit more sleep the previous night? Like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, this was one of the highlights of the week, I thought personally. Also with the home fields, it's a little bit of a strange situation. Everyone knows King is it's a fun map to play, but it's also really, really painful with the spawns. You saw Sparrow getting caught up in the lift there. All sorts of fun things which can happen on this map. And then also Dante picking D5M1, very safe choice, classic choice. Everyone likes that map. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people do. When I was watching though, I thought honestly he plays a little bit better than the quicker maps. Maybe that's just me saying that, but not just in this game, but also in other matches, I feel like his playstyle suited a little more of a quicker map. I remember him playing Ed on the tiebreaker of round 1 Styx. And he was running around the map at 100 miles an hour, hitting amazing shots, and I was sort of wondering to myself, you know, why would he pick such a slow map when he's that quick of a player? But like I said earlier, this could have gone either way. A little bit disappointing to see Dante lose this. Sparrow, I'm sure he's super happy with that narrow win, and he gets to play Xwiz in round 3.
That is correct. Dante is not out of the running yet. He is down in the lower bracket as of right now. Next matchup, we have Lang against X-Wizard in the upper bracket. It is a 3-round series where Lang took it, or I'm sorry, X-Wiz took it 2-1. Lang won the first map, however, 50-43 on SSL2. X-Wiz came back to win 50-38 on Oblivix and 50-20 on the Mu2D tiebreaker. So it's tough to go into a matchup winning the first map, your home field, and then coming back and playing down, going going into the tiebreaker. After you can't shut him out 2-0, you have to play the tiebreaker, and Wiz shut him out 50-20. Anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think this one, a lot of this one came down to Lang not liking the tiebreaker. With Wiz, he's extremely hard to play in a competitive setting. He's super locked in. He gets super focused. A lot of players, myself included, kind of have the opposite effect where nerves get to them a little bit in a competitive setting. Wiz just seems to be the opposite, where he's always, turbo concentrated. So SSL2, no surprise, Lang's just a monster there. It's basically shoot, but with different spawns and a bit more cover. And then Oblivix being Wiz's home field, super slow map. He was able to slow it down, outthink Lang a little bit. Show a little more patience than Lang usually does. And then actually on Move 2D, what happened was Lang sort of just gave up. He asked even to forfeit, and so I think it just got into his head. He knew he wasn't gonna compete in the tiebreaker. He got mad. Everyone gets mad. I'm not super appreciative that he wanted to just throw the tiebreaker, but it is what it is. He's gonna do everything he can to keep going in this tournament. He did come back, and we'll get into that later. And he played Style, and he's continuing in the loser bracket.
Yeah, sometimes it's a mental game. It's just as much a mechanical game, a tactical game, as it is a mental game. You don't want to break before the tiebreaker.
100%, yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned Lang in the lower bracket, because guess what the next match is? That's right, Lang against Stall in the lower bracket, where Lang actually advances 2-1. Lang won 50-30 on SSL2. Stall came back to win his own home field of Duengo 5 map 7, 50-39, and then Lang sealed the deal on Mood 2D 50-31. Despite a strong performance from Stall on his home field, Lang took both the other maps in pretty decisive wins, so he showed his power on close quarter slugfest maps like SSL2 and Mood 2D. He might be out of the upper bracket, but he's starting a lower bracket run that other players they should watch out for. Lang is a pretty strong opponent.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is, you never want to see Lang in any matchup against yourself, but you especially don't want to see Lang when you're playing to stay into the tournament, So this is definitely a tough position for Style to be in. He played it really well. He won his home field, like you just mentioned, by a fair margin. But with Lang being so strong on most aim maps like Move 2D and SSL2 as we're watching here, it's just so hard to keep up. So, Style put a really good effort in for sure, but just getting knocked out. Fairly thin margins, but still definitely noticeable margins nonetheless.
All right, and next game will show another old veteran getting knocked out. Dante versus Hate Daddy, where Dante took it 2-1, eliminating Hate Daddy out of the tournament. Dante won 39-33 on Duengo 5 map 1. Hate then came back to win 50-27 on D5M7, and Dante then won the tiebreaker 50-44. Dante approached his home field very conservatively, during which we rarely saw Hate push him and try to force any errors, so players were on opposite sides of the map for a fairly long time. And this led to the first round so far in the tournament that lasted the full 15-minute time limit, which is remarkable to me on Duengo 5 map 1, which a lot of players tend to rush each other down pretty often. Dante played it very defensively and took the advantage in that series.
Yeah, first match to go to time, which I'm a little bit surprised about. Honestly, I was expecting a little bit more matches to go to time. I know you said, a lot of people like to rush on D5M1. I quite often have the opposite experience where people take advantage of these back hallways, the blue room, and they really like to slow things down. These players didn't really hang around the blue room too much, even though you see Dante walking around the blue room there as I say that. But it wasn't a super slow, hiding from each other match, more as it was a carefully well thought out match. So not a huge surprise it went to 15 minutes there, but still a really tight game. This is another example, I think, of Dante perhaps playing a little bit better on faster maps. He did win D5M1 by a margin of 6 there. And he also won by a margin of 6. So what am I saying with Mu2D? But I still thought his playstyle just seems to play better with quicker maps. It's just how I feel. Hate putting in a really good effort on his home field at D5M7, 50-27. So that was the biggest margin in any of the games. Hate definitely still has it, even though he doesn't play too often. So it's great to see that. But yeah, really great effort from both of these players, and Dante is now moving on.
Dante is moving on, and with Hate's elimination, that is both D5M7 home fielders eliminated from the tournament. Stall and Hate, although very strong on their home field, did lose their lower bracket game, so we won't be seeing any more Duengo 5 Map 7 as of right now.
Thank God.
The next match is in the Pro Division lower bracket, Poto versus Ed, where Poto won it in a 2-1 series. Ed did start off winning 50-43 on Poto's home field of Class 219. Then Poto came back to win on Ed's home field of Duengo 5 Map 1. He won that 50-35, and then continued on to the tiebreaker to win 50-43 on Mu2D. So we saw a bit of a home field swap here, but yeah, it's interesting to me that happened, where players effectively were stronger on their opponent's home field. But with Mu2D in the bag, Poto punches his ticket for the next round against Warrior.
Yeah, Poto's sticking in it for sure. But this was a matchup between two very aim-focused players. I feel like both these players have extremely good aim. I've seen both of them go back and forth on the replay here. A little bit of a home field switch, like you said. Margins were close for a few of them. 50-35 in the middle there for Poto. So he did edge it out just a little bit more than Ed. I know. I was actually talking to Ed the other night about this. Very loud Ed. He said he was surprised he took a round off of Poto. So maybe Ed was a little bit nervous going into this one. He thought Poto was definitely the better player, and I guess that's kind of how it turned out in this one. So yeah, Poto keeps on going on. He gets to play Warrior in round 3 now.
That's correct. And speaking of Warrior, there'll be our last game of the Pro Division in the lower bracket, Drangzer versus Warrior, where Warrior won at 2-1. Drangzer won the first map of Pobla, 50-28, showing his powerful expertise on his home field of Pobla 8. Warrior came back to win his own home field of Green War, 50-40, and then Mu2D, 50-40 as well. So the biggest gap between the two players was the opening map of Pobla, but Warrior rallied and kept a strong mental game, came back and pushed on to the next round.
Yeah, I think the result of this sort of reiterates what I was struggling to say in the first round analysis when I was talking about myself versus Drangzer. For Drangzer, he's not a particularly well-known duel player. He doesn't play duel very often, but he is extremely strong on Pobla. So we saw Drangzer winning 50-28 against Warrior, and then Warrior winning by 10 on the other 2 maps. So Warrior, I know he's been practicing duel quite a lot recently. Definitely put a lot of effort into practice for the tournament, which is great to see. And I think that's kind of just what got him the win here. He was just a little bit more well-rounded, perhaps, than Drangzer was. Drangzer, very, very strong on Pobla, but he just couldn't quite cut it on the other maps. And so, not huge margins. Drangzer's definitely put up a really good fight. But Warrior, like I said, I think he was probably just a little bit more of a well-rounded player in this situation on these maps. So he got the win here.
These are maps that are pretty, I would probably liken them to being pretty aggressive, friendly maps. And with Drangzer's power on Pobla, clearly with good boomstick aim, why do you think that didn't translate to Green War or Mu2D?
It's hard to say, honestly. I've always thought of Pobla as a little bit like a match of shoot, but with just with SGs. So seeing him not do so well on Green War, which is kind of a similar play style, but just a little bit more open, a little bit more SSG focused. It's a tough one to dissect. I think just positioning plays a little bit more of a fact into it. I know Pobla, if you watch the replays on Pobla, 90% of the gameplay happens out in that open area where the SSG and the BFG aren't, and so it sort of comes down to just moving around, doing some dodges, and clicking shoot on the enemy player, whereas these other maps, a little bit more positioning going on. So I think that's kind of the deciding factor.
All right. Well, Drangzer is out of the tournament. Warrior moves on. We hope to see Drangzer in the future.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the intermediate division now. In the upper bracket, we have Saltmine versus Dragon, where Saltmine walked away with a 2-0 victory. But the match was fairly close. Saltmine did win 50-27 on Pobla, which you see now on your screen, and 50-46 on Dragon's home field of King 1, sending Dragon to the lower bracket. Again, another example of one player being extremely strong on Pobla.
Yeah, Pobla's it's a bit of a notorious map this tournament. Pobla, very hard to play against a player who likes playing Pobla for sure. Saltmine definitely be one of those players, like I mentioned just previously. Kind of one of those maps, like exactly how you're seeing Saltmine play it now. You kind of stay in this middle open area, and you just click shoot and dodge around and try to get those shots off on the enemy player. Not a whole lot of like huge, map control positioning ideas going on. You're really just controlling one area and doing what you can aim wise. So Saltmine excels at that. He's got really, really good aim. I think I mentioned it last week. I think Saltmine's actually a little bit of an underrated player. My guess would be to say that he's going all the way in the intermediate bracket. I'd love for someone to prove me wrong, but just my personal prediction, I want to say that. Dragon doing a really good job though. He kept it fairly tight. I know in the second match it was a lot more of a large margin, 50-27. Saltmine's just really hard to play though. Like I was playing him just the other day, and he's doing incredibly well. Not much more to add to this one.
Yeah, it looks like Saltmine might be gunning for a ticket to the Pro Division now that the semifinals are upon them. Again, best of 5 will be coming up between Saltmine and the winner of our next match. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Intermediate division in the upper bracket. The other match will be Killer 007 against Reaper, where Killer shut out Reaper 2-0. Killer did win 50-45 on Class 219 and then 50-43 on Greenmore, so it says 2-0, but again, these matches were close. I always say if it's within 10 frags, a lot can happen in a 50 frag match to where that margin can just completely evaporate.
Yeah, like you said, super tight margins here. Once again, kind of one of those matchups where it's like you start to think, what if this happened? What if that happened? I remember watching this one. This was one of the first games that happened this week. I noticed Reaper was playing very, very conservatively, especially on this map that we're watching now, Greenmore map 20. He sort of stuck around one area, really played defensive around that area. I don't think it quite worked out for him. If there was one criticism I could make on it, I think Reaper could have been a little bit more flexible in his play style. I think he needed to adjust to how Killer was playing. Killer was playing a little more of a well-rounded game. I feel like he was sort of trying to pull away when Reaper was getting aggressive, and then trying to perhaps make Reaper uncomfortable by pushing a little bit more when Reaper was playing defensive. So I think that's the ultimate factor in what made Killer win this one. Both these players, I feel, have very good mechanics. Like they both have decent aim, decent movement. So I feel it was the flexibility and play style which really played the key factor in this one.
All right. Reaper is knocked down to the lower bracket, and his match is coming up next. So Reaper's second game, unfortunately, did not go the way he expected. Nico took the series in a 2-0 series, and not a whole lot to say. Nico played pretty well. 50-36 on Greenmore and 50-31 on Mu 2D. So Reaper unfortunately suffering back-to-back defeats, but hopefully we'll see him again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. A shame to see Reaper out of this tournament. But like I said last week, Nico is one of those question mark players, so I find it very enjoyable to watch how he plays, because it's just one of these players who I've never seen play at all really before. So yeah, Nico proving his worth once again. He's going to keep going in the losers bracket here. I don't think I kept on going actually, because a little bit of a sneak peek to next week, I guess. But Dragon played game against him, and it perhaps didn't go too well for Nico. But in this particular matchup, Nico, I think he's got quite an aggressive playstyle, decent aim, and so it just worked out a little bit more in his favor than Reaper. Reaper put in a good effort for this one. I didn't really see him practice at all for the tournament, so maybe he could have done that to prepare himself a little bit better, but still a good showing from his end.
Yeah, still a good run. And Nico will advance to face Dragon, whose match we'll cover here. Dragon against Demolition is the other lower bracket match in the intermediate division, and Dragon won 2-1 against Demolition. 50-37 on King 1, Demolition came back to win 50-49 on Oblivix, and then Dragon finished it out 50-44 on Mu2D. So very close games, especially in the second and third round. King won with the largest margin of only 13 frags, which, as we know, 13 frags, not a whole lot on King 1.
Yeah, with King 1 spawns, that's nothing. And I was wrong. There was another match this tournament, which has happened to be a 1 frag margin. So, yeah, one of the closest matches here in the intermediate division. Two very good players. Like I said previously, I feel like Dragon's perhaps not as warmed up as he might have been. A lot of players were surprised that he was in the intermediate bracket, which I mentioned last week. But I think it is the right spot for him currently. Demolition put a really good effort into this one. I didn't really see him practice too much once again, so maybe a little bit of a Reaper situation where perhaps if he put a little bit more practice into it, could have been a different story. But yeah, super close showing between these two. Dragon coming out on top and continuing his reign in the losers bracket.
Absolutely. So that will conclude the intermediate division, where we would now see semifinals between Salt Mine and Killer, and in the lower bracket we saw a match between Nico and Dragon, which we will cover next week. Let's get this one out of the way. In the rookie division, one of our matches unfortunately resulted in a forfeit between Vaj and Mame, and Vaj will move on to the rookie bracket finals. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here. Unfortunately, this match did not get played.
Yeah, oh boy. I've got a whole lot to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no. This was a matchup which could have been interesting to see. I know Mame, there was previous issues where he didn't show up for his match against Ho, and then Ho was very kind to reschedule that one, which was great on her end. For this one, there wasn't really any excuse not to show up. Wasn't busy, you know. I like to be very open and forgiving to players. You know, people have lives outside of Doom. You can't expect people to put everything into this and show up for absolutely everything and go out of their way to do things. But in this situation, it wasn't like someone was busy with work or someone had a family emergency come up. It was just none of that. And so with these events happening online, it sometimes it's easy to forget about stuff like sportsmanship, but I feel it is still important to remember that a lot of people are taking a lot of times out of their day, out of their month to make these games happen and to show up and practice. And then when you go ahead and just don't show up to something like this, it sucks. It sucks for everyone. So, you know, in the case of Mame, it's not something we like to tolerate, and he definitely will not be allowed to play in future competitive events.
It's unfortunate to hear, especially in the rookie division, where we would like to see players develop and improve. Again, the leagues that we run through Classic Doom, that I've seen run through Classic Doom across the entire multiplayer side of the community, very forgiving. People work with each other. Time zones are a thing. Life is a thing.
Yep.
We just want to get the matches played. We want everybody to have a good time. All right. And last but not least in the rookie division, Xenaero versus D-Ron, where rookie division is a little bit different because it doesn't have a lower bracket. So semifinals in the rookie division are a best of 5. D-Ron took that 3-0, where he won 50-41 on King 1, 50-37 on D5M1, and then 50-43 on King 1. So all matches within the ballpark of 10 frags of each other. It's a tough one, but this is not the finals. This is a semifinals match, so a best of 5 will follow this one later on.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I really wanted to see my boy Xenaero keep on going through this tournament. I was hoping he could have been a finals contender, but not the case. D-Ron put a really good effort into this one. He just edged it out for all 3 matches, and you can't really knock him for that. You can't really say, you know, what if this happened? You know, all 3 matches were run by D-Ron. So yeah, it was pretty decisive. With D-Ron, he was another question mark player, a little bit like Nico, but in the rookie bracket here, where we don't really know, you know, his skill level, his skill set, what he's working with, and he's proven himself really well here. So decisive win for D-Ron there, and he's moving on against VozJ into the finals here.
All right, and that will do it for our match, for the really the match overview throughout week 2 of the Rampage Duel League. We're going to take another look at the brackets, however.
Yes, we are.
So in the Pro Division, we did go through all those matches. We'll be looking forward to week 3, where we'll be seeing Nexus against Amar, Disparel against X-Wizard, and that will be it for the upper bracket. I was like ready to name off more names, but no, we got the lower bracket here, where Lang will be going against Dante, and then Poto against Warrior. So again, only 4 matches going forward. So a lot of players. We started with 24 players in the Pro Division. Now we're down to 8. So things are narrowing pretty quickly. What do you think we'll be seeing moving forward? Do you think we have a finalist that we should keep our eyes on?
Well, me, of course. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible. Like I said last week, I don't really like making predictions about myself. I don't think it's a particularly humble thing to do. Myself versus Amar this week. Honestly, it's gonna be crazy. Could go either way. A little bit nervous for this one. I'm not gonna make a prediction as to who's gonna win, because I think it's gonna be too close to just make an outright prediction. But also, like I said, I don't really want to make a prediction about myself. And then the other winner bracket game here, Sparrow versus Wiz, another pretty high skill level one. I am honestly just gonna go on to hot takes. I'm gonna make a prediction for all of these games. I think Wiz is gonna win this one fairly well. I think there's going to be a little bit of a gap there. I think with the home fields, I think Wiz is just going to be the better player for this matchup. So that's kind of the winners bracket we got there. Moving down into the losers bracket, Lang versus Dante. I do want to see Dante keep on going here. I think he's been a great player so far in this tournament. I do think Lang is just insanely strong at duels, so I'm thinking Lang's going to win this one. It will be interesting to see Lang play D5M1 though, because that's not sort of the type of map that Lang likes playing, and
we did see Dante play pretty conservatively too, while Lang favors very aggressive gameplay.
Yeah. So I think Dante, grab out your note and paper here. I think you should play pretty conservatively there. I think that's your best bet. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to watch for sure. And then Poto and Warrior, this will be a cool one because like I've been saying, Warrior's been putting in some great games here. Poto, one of those players who's just known to be crazy good at this game, but perhaps not much of a duel player. I'm gonna say Poto's gonna win this one, but I secretly want to see Warrior prove me wrong here. All right.
And since you kind of glossed over your match against Armor, I'm going to let's see, how would I phrase this? So your home fields are very similar. Judas 23 and Dweller 2 map 11 are extremely technical maps, and you're both good at your respective home fields, which means to me that you will be pretty good at each other's home field as well. It's going to be a tight one. I'm not even sure I can really give it a proper prediction, because can you remind me what is next week's tiebreaker?
So it is, what is it? It's Eon DM. So
okay. So for those of you out there who don't know the maps really well, Eon DM is also a pretty technical map. It has some corners that are very tight, so there's kind of a floor to take control of, and kind of park yourself if you're in control, if you have dominance over the map, which also tends to be the case for Dweller and Judas as well. So we're looking at potentially 3 highly technical maps between Nexus and Amar. I can't predict it. That's tough. If I had to pick, I'll pick my co-host. But
Okay.
if
Yeah, you're too kind.
I think it would be extremely narrow margins. But I guess we'll find out.
I'm gonna throw now, so you're wrong.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. But you're not out of the tournament yet, even if you do lose, because you have a lower bracket match to play. So,
That's right.
not on the edge of elimination yet. Let's move on to the intermediate bracket here.
The intermission bracket.
Dude, I keep trying to say intermission. I can't believe it. Okay. So one game has already been played for week 3, and that is Nico against Dragon, which Dragon did advance.
Yes.
That is the current state of the brackets. So the only match that we have that's a big question mark is the semifinals between Salt Mine and Killer 007. That will be a best of 5.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a best of 5, so quite a long game, quite a lot of opportunities for both these players to really show what they have here. Like I've kind of been saying all tournament, though, Salt Mine is just a monster in this bracket. So I'm going to confidently say I feel like Salt Mine's going to win this one. Killer's going to have plenty of opportunities here to prove me wrong, though, with a best of 5. I just think Salt Mine's just incredibly hard to play around. He's got such a good aim. He doesn't actually play duels very much, and for a player who doesn't really duel that often, he is very, very impressive. Killer, also super strong player, hasn't lost anything yet, so he's earned his spot in the winners bracket. Honestly, though, I'm feeling like the bigger question here is going to be for loses round 4, who's winning, Killer versus Dragon. But that's just my take on it.
That might be tough. Salt Mine's home field is Pobla 8, and Killer's, which I had in front of me, class 219.
Right.
That's kind of a slugfest map, I would probably say. Also, kind of in the same vein as Pobla, in a manner you don't always spawn on top of a super shotgun. So could be tough for Killer to handle Salt Mine, especially on Pobla.
Yeah, honestly, Pobla is. I feel like it's gonna be near impossible. Once again, I hope Killer proves me wrong here, but I think Salt Mine's just got this one in the bag, unless
probably
Killer pulls something out, you know. But yeah. Once again, hopefully he proves me wrong. But Salt Mine, I feel, is going to the finals here.
Both competitors won their previous games 2-0, so that's there. It could really go anybody's way. They don't seem weak to me.
Yeah. This we could even see Killer versus Salt Mine Part 2. Like if Killer goes on to lose this one and then wins against Dragon, it could be Killer versus Salt Mine in the finals. So this is one thing that's interesting about double elimination, is we could see this game happen again. So we're at an interesting spot here. Once again, Killer, I feel it is just slightly got the underhand here. He's a little bit of an underdog position in my eyes, at least.
Okay. Let's look forward a little bit further. Let's project Killer to fight Dragon. Who do you think takes that?
I think that's going to be an even tighter game. I would say Dragon, though.
Dragon's home field is King 1, so we'll probably see that with how the brackets are shaping up. We'll see at the very minimum Class 219, King 1, then back to Class 219.
Yeah, that's right. And so with this bracket, we've seen Salt Mine and Dragon go at it before. We haven't seen Killer and Dragon play. So, you know, for all I know, there's often situations with players where one player might seem a little bit more dominant, but just because of their play style, it ends up not being a situation. So, like what we saw with perhaps Lang and Wiz, you know, I think most people, probably Wiz included, would say Lang has better aim than him, right? But just because Wiz was able to slow it down, he's got a little bit more of a patient head on him. He was able to slow it down and win those games pretty decisively. And so maybe we'll see a situation going on like that with Killer and Dragon. But we just don't know because we haven't seen them play yet. So personally, I'm going to say Dragon on that one, but it could be very tight.
It'll be a fun game to watch. It'll be a fun game to cover. But that's then. Right now, we're going to go over what is going to be the finals for the rookie division. That will be a best of 5 between Vaj and D-Ron.
Hell yeah.
This is a fun one to speculate on. Vaj's home field is Mu2D and D-Ron's is King 1. So we've seen D-Ron run through Xanadu in a 3-0.
Yep.
Match was pretty close.
Definitely
And
was.
Vaj's last game was against Widower in week 1. But that was a 2-1, and those games were fairly close too. It wasn't a stomp.
Yeah. So yeah, we've had some close games leading up to this one. I feel like D-Ron, I feel like I'm still saying his name wrong, but I'm gonna
Me
call
too.
him D-Ron anyway. same with
Dron?
Vaz J. It could be like
Dude,
Vaj,
I
it could
don't
be
know.
Drawn.
We're sorry. We
got-
apologize.
Yeah, we're definitely wrong. But D-Ron, I feel like he's proved himself a little bit more. He's played all of his game. That's no fault to Vaj or Vaz J. You know, Mame didn't show up. That's absolutely not his fault. But I feel like D-Ron's proven himself a little bit more. That's not to say he's got any more skill though. It's just I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a safer bet to go with D-Ron winning this one because he's proven himself twice. He hasn't actually lost a round at all. So he's gone 3-0 against Zandu and he's gone 2-0 against Xenaero. Whereas Vaz J, you know, he did lose a round against Widower, and you know Widower put a very good effort into this tournament. So that's once again nothing against him. But I feel like it's just a little bit of a safer option to go with D-Ron here. But I also still wouldn't be surprised if Vaj kind of came out on top here. It's very hard to say. Both these players from Russia, I believe they just kind of play on their servers. I know they get these really cool like LAN tournaments going, which I've seen online. That's really cool. But it also means that we just haven't really seen them on these US servers. So both players still a little bit of a question mark despite going into finals here. But I'm going to say D-Ron for the win here.
It'll be very fun to watch. And if possible, we will try to broadcast the finals of every division.
Yes.
I mean, it's, again, players are spread across the globe. Time zones may not make that possible, but we're going to do our best to live broadcast that. And it won't be just recap only this season on Rampage Duel League, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it'll be great to see.
That kind of rounds out our at least what we got scripted here. Anything you want to talk about, Rampage Duel League wise, competition wise, Doom wise? What you got?
What is there to say? I think so far, I want to thank everyone for making it go pretty smoothly. We haven't had any huge, you know, dramas going on. You know, Mame didn't show up for his game, which is obviously you hate to see. Lang perhaps really didn't like Mu 2D, but stuff happens. He's still continuing to play. But on the whole, no huge upsets. I know we had the servers go down for a little while. There's like literally a fire with our service providers. So that was fun to work through. Well, those were down for a couple of days, but yeah, on the whole, I think everyone's been super good. I appreciate everyone for kind of. This has been a long time coming for me. At least I've wanted to run this for a while, so it's great to see everyone show up and put such good effort into it.
Awesome. Yeah. Please be sure to not smoke inside the data center. It is not exactly conducive to a safe work environment. Fortunately, the servers have been restored and games are progressing as expected. And thank you to everybody in the chat taking time out of your weekday, your weeknight, wherever you may be in the world, or taking time whenever to watch the VOD. This will be on YouTube, accompanying Week 1's recap. Thank you to everybody, the community, for coming out, and another shout out to Widower for multiple gifted subs. Those will go towards the Rampage server fund. Appreciate everybody, and thank you to Nexus for showing up, for taking time out of your day to join me in Rampage Recap.
Well, thank you once again for doing this for us. I cannot say thank you enough because this is great. I never expected this amount of production value to go into this, so I'm very happy. Thank you.
I appreciate that. It's fun to do for everybody. It's fun to do for the players, for the league, for everybody at home. It's a hobby of mine. Love doing it for the community. And we're gonna play you guys out with one more sweep of the recap, and we'll see you next week for more broadcasting, and maybe we'll get the rookie finals casted, but we'll definitely have at least one more recap. Thank you to everybody, and have a good evening.